Members of Congress are already accusing the IRS of unfairly targeting Tea Party groups. They say the tax agency is overreaching.
As David Brody reports, this is a fight over IRS tactics, and it actually feeds right into the Tea Party's demand for smaller government.
The Liberty Township Tea Party meets here in Westchester, Ohio, once a month. The conversation usually centers on politics and constitutional principles. These days, however, the hot topic is the Internal Revenue Service, specifically questioning why the tax agency won't approve the group's request to be considered a nonprofit.
This isn't rocket science. We know what the rules are.
The group filed paperwork more than a year ago. In return, they received an unexpected laundry list of questions. The IRS wanted to know things like the background of family members and personal information of each member and volunteer in their Tea Party organization.
The ultimate goal is to kind of silence political activities.
Jordan Sekulow, the executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice, sees this activity against Tea Party groups as plain and simple harassment.
I think the goal of the IRS and the hope was that you get these questions and you say, you know what, never mind. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go through this process. This is too rigorous. They ask for every donor's name, all the information of everything that's ever been spoken about at your event.
The ACLJ has been swamped with requests for help. Tea Party complaints against the IRS have come from numerous states, including Hawaii, California, Texas, Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia. Some groups even had to submit all Facebook posts and Twitter tweets. In some cases, they were given just a couple of weeks to get all that information together. The IRS says that any group that wants to apply for nonprofit status has to be primarily engaged in promoting the social welfare. The agency also says that this process has become a lot more complex and detailed because they don't want these nonprofit groups intertwining with political campaigns. But that answer isn't flying on Capitol Hill. Dozens of congressmen signed a letter to the IRS saying it overstepped their authority. Quote, "These demands go well beyond good faith due diligence and appear designed to be logistically and financially impossible to comply with. These recent inquiries appear to constitute disparate treatment for no apparent reason other than the political persuasion of applicants." Sekulow is advising Tea Party groups to call the IRS's bluff.
We're going through and saying, okay, here's what to answer, and then here just put, no, this violates my First Amendment rights, and then you submit that form. Then it's up to the IRS. They will have to decide, are they going to fight this, or is that enough information, basically, for them?
It looks to be a political game of chicken. Meanwhile, Tea Party groups are using this ordeal to remember what started their movement in the first place.
When you start to lose trust in your government agencies, then it becomes an us against them mentality, you know, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. I think it goes back to what the Tea Party's all about. Less government's better. Bigger governments, not better government. Smaller governments, better government.
David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Well, I think we've been starting to not trust our government agencies for quite some time. It's almost a joke in our culture. I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help. And we seem to not understand the nature of bureaucracies. They want to self-perpetuate. They also want to grow. And so if there's a group out there forming to do exactly the opposite, which is to cut government bureaucracy and cut government spending, well, there might be a resistance on the part of the bureaucracy to allow them to freely operate. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, people who are skeptical of climate change have a slightly higher knowledge of science than those who believe in it. That is the finding from a new study by Yale researchers and published in a journal called Nature Climate Change. The study finds that people who support and oppose global warming are knowledgeable about science, but it concluded that people make their judgments on global warming based on the views of others who share their values. Egypt's presidential election has come down now to two men after the first round of voting. One is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The other, the last prime minister of ousted President Hosni Mubarak. They will meet in a runoff June 16th and 17th. Soon after the candidates were announced, rioters attacked the campaign office of the former prime minister, Ahmed Shafiq. smashing windows, trashing campaign signs and posters, and setting the building on fire. Shafiq supporters blame the powerful Muslim Brotherhood. Kansas Governor Sam Brownback has signed a measure blocking the use of Islamic law in that state. The new law does not mention Sharia law, but it does bar Kansas courts and government agencies from basing decisions on Islamic or other foreign legal codes. Muslim groups oppose the measure. They argue it promotes discrimination. The Council on American Islamic Relations says a court challenge is likely. Well, taps echoed across the nation on Memorial Day yesterday, including the place where it was composed and first performed 150 years ago. Yuri Villanueva has played taps hundreds of times. He spent most of his 23 years in the military performing it at Arlington National Cemetery. Now he spends much of his time as a taps historian, making folks aware that it was here on the banks of the James River in Virginia where the haunting 24-note melody was born. Berkeley Plantation dates back to the earliest days of the English colonies. In 1862, it's where Union troops were encamped during the Peninsula Campaign. General Daniel Butterfield didn't care for the bugle call he heard each night for lights out.
He summoned his bugler, 22-year-old Oliver Wilcox Norton, and together they revised an old bugle call that had gone out of use prior to the Civil War. The call that they came up with was taps, and first sounded that July evening here at Harrison's Landing, soon spread to the rest of the Union Army, and even used by Confederates by the end of the war.
And of course, over the last 150 years, it's been used countless times as the final salute to those who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Yuri told me that it's performed 30 times a day at Arlington National Cemetery. That's how many funeral ceremonies they have up there now each day. Terry, back to you.
Fascinating history of that well-known taps.
NATO says its forces have killed al-Qaeda's second highest ranking leader in Afghanistan. Officials say an airstrike killed Sakir al-Tafi and another militant Sunday. No civilians were harmed. Al-Tafi commanded foreign insurgents in Afghanistan, directing attacks against NATO and Afghan forces. Most of al-Qaeda's senior leaders are now believed to be based in Pakistan. A massive virus has attacked computers in Iran and the Middle East. A Russian-based internet security firm reports the attack of the spyware. It's being called Flame. The program reportedly very complex. Iran has not disclosed any damage by the virus. The origin of the virus has yet to be verified, but many suspect Israel was involved. The attack is reminiscent of the Stuxnet virus that temporarily crippled Iran's nuclear program about 2 years ago. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.